Hey, Robin. Thanks again for joining into the Scale It Agro podcast. I'm really excited for this conversation we're going to have today. But someone has just clicked to listen to this podcast. And basically, why should they listen to you? What should they know about you to continue listening on this conversation?
Hi. And thanks a lot, first of all, for having me. Well, my background is that I'm coming from the farming family. So my father is a farmer, and his father was a farmer, and his father, and etc. But I studied computer science. So then back in 2016, my father's computer broke down, and he had some old Excel tables and some old software over there. So he needed to find a new tool to manage the farm. And I ended up building something initially just for us, but then other farmers started using it as well. And next thing you know, we were the most popular farm management software company in Estonia, and then started going to other countries as well. So today we have like 2.5 million hectares in 10 different European markets. And then we also have a small pilot in East Africa. But interestingly, part of the first prototype, there was also something that we called a humus balance calculator. Humus is the richest part of the soil, and half of this is carbon. And back in 2016, no farmer was asking for this. But we just added it because soil health is really important for us. And we wanted to show that every decision that farmers make is also influencing the soil. And then fast forward to 2020, when we had already quite some farmers on the platform, we had also big corporations approaching us, saying that they have done a lot to reduce their emissions, and they now want to compensate for the remaining emissions because we were working with soil carbon and we were really vocal about soil health and so on. They came to us and said, hey, maybe we can figure something out together. So that's when we launched the carbon program, both for offsetting, but also for value chain insetting and etc. So it has been a journey, but yeah, well, as you asked about my background a bit, and trying to combine farming realities with computer science possibilities.
Very interesting. And when your father's computer broke down, I think you were 20 and then you dropped out to build eAgronom.
Yeah, that's correct. I think, yeah, I was 20, and that was in 2016. And yeah, I dropped out, and I just recently found myself thinking that for 1/3 of my life, I have been building e-agronom.
Congrats. That's an amazing milestone, I think. And it's interesting because it's very rare to see founders below 25 in this industry of agro and food because they have some kind of their own self implications that they're too young, perhaps, or they don't have enough experience to get into this industry, which is very technical, which is agro and food. And of course, it is technical. But I'm sure there's a 20-year-old listening to this podcast right now, and she has this idea in her mind that she wants to pursue but is scared to pursue it. What do you have to say to her?
Well, in a way, just to get started, and I guess from my side also, okay, I built the first prototype to my father and etc. But then when I understood that I might build a business out of this, I started selling immediately to other farmers as well, even though the product was not ready for this. And that gave a really good feedback, because when you start selling, then people will actually start giving you true feedback. Otherwise, they might say, oh yeah, I like it or I don't like it. But the biggest voice is if they are ready to sign the contract. Then you know if it works or not. And you can ask, okay, what would it take for me to change your mind to sign the contract? And then you start get, okay, I need this, I need that, and etc. So yeah, I would say just to get started and start selling immediately. So you will see if it actually resonates with other people as well or not.
Even when the product is not fully built to what the market wants, you want to get feedback and validate the idea.
Exactly, because most likely you will end up with something different than you initially imagined. So then you just don't lose the valuable time and energy and resources on building something that no one would need.
Very interesting. And you also mentioned that you're now in 10 European markets and also in East Africa. But I think even before this, eAgronom had scaled to, in the earlier years, to I think 15 countries and then scaled back down. So you perhaps
Mhm.
scaled too fast and then scaled back down. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, and I would say all together, yes, that's correct. So anyways, that was really, really the beginning. When we got started, we within first, I would say, about 6 months, we became number one player in Estonia.
Okay.
And we were really successful in selling directly to farmers. The farmers really hyped about the product, and we built a community, and it went viral. And we thought that every other market will go like this. And so we entered Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Czechia, Slovakia, Germany, and it ended up that number one, selling directly is easier than selling through someone else, especially if you don't speak the language. It's difficult to show how the sales works or to give feedback to the sales guy or so. So that's one. Number two, as I said, we were really popular in Estonia, but you go 10 kilometers other side of the border, no one knew us. These guys didn't speak our language. They lived in different media room and etc. So we ended up scaling that down and focusing only on Poland, and Latvia somehow started growing on its own as well. But then from there we have actually built it kind of the presence in those markets again, and are well right now, and obviously if you're a bigger company and you already have the model, then you can go enter several markets at the same time. But really at the beginning I would recommend focusing on one market first, one foreign market first.
Yeah, completely agree. Even with Scale It Agro, we see that a lot of our founders, they're very excited in the initial stages and they want to expand really fast, be fast, speed. That's what startups are all about. But sometimes you have to take your time to be fast.
Yeah, and be ready to do the work as well, like the hard work or the ugly work. I lived in and out. I think for a year I was most of my time in Poland. So it's especially in the beginning, you really want to be present where the customers are. And obviously now I cannot be in that heavily in all of the markets where we operate. We have that many markets. But really at the beginning, it makes sense to build out a strong core team over there and to really understand the customer problems, and to understand if you're able to hire a new person, do you need another sales guy, or do you need another developer, or you need account manager, and then kind of you're really and also the roadmap. So what kind of feedback farmers are giving and so on.
Okay. And how did you know that you scaled too fast? I mean, was it in the numbers that you saw that something was not working and then you have to scale back, or how did you know?
Well, the results were actually the interesting thing was we had a sales manager. Always, if that sales manager visited some country, results went up. But then that sales manager went to another country to work with another sales guy, and the results in the previous market went down, and then in the new market they went up again. So we saw that, okay, we really need to focus on one market to crack this really well, to understand what works and what doesn't work. So then, well, and then obviously choosing from, we were even thinking about Canada, but ended up on Poland as the biggest, one of the biggest agricultural countries in Europe.
Okay. And when you decided to scale back, how did you choose which countries to keep and which countries to skip? What was the criteria?
I would say a few things. One was that where we saw traction. Then secondly, what kind of team did we have? Like, were we happy with the people that we had were involved with or not? And then the market size or the size of the opportunity as well. So we thought, okay, we had quite good activities going on in Latvia as well. No one would care. Like, okay, you're successful in Estonia, you're also successful in Latvia. No one cares about this. But being successful in a big agricultural country like Poland, that's already something. So that's why we ended up focusing on Poland.
Okay. And you also mentioned that now you're in 10 European markets again and also in East Africa. So, what changed initially when you were expanding into all these international markets versus now that you've already expanded into these markets? What did you do differently between both times?
Yeah. So let's take Europe first. So in Europe, we have a clear roadmap already now how to enter the market. There is a product market fit, and we are confident. We know we have been in so many different markets, so we know what is same and what might be different. Where are the localizations? What kind of people do we need? What kind of partners do we need, and so on. So we already have the playbook. Regarding East Africa, we don't have it yet. So East Africa for us is like lab. So it's like test ground. So we just have a bunch of farmers over there, and we don't add any new farmers. but we just want to work out the model until we know that we are ready to scale there as well. They're like a different in different stages for us. In Europe, it's purely expansion, repeating, and in East Africa, it's more like discovery. Okay, let's see what works and what doesn't work. We are fine in a way, and we also kind of over there entered few markets at the same time in the beginning with knowing that we will likely not end up, at least in the short term, in all of those markets. But we also
Right.
spent much less compared to the first experiments in Europe. So we knowingly tested different things to understand what works and what doesn't work.
Okay. Then I have a very selfish question, I think, for the cohort, because a lot of founders that we know as well, they're looking to expand into Europe currently. And you say that you have tested many things, you have experimented many things. So there must be intersections between what works and what doesn't. So what's the playbook? Do you hire a local country lead first, or send someone from HQ to set it up? What works? What worked?
Yeah, maybe a few things. Well, broadly speaking, I would say, look who is successful in this market. The companies that are selling fertilizers or the producing fertilizers or tractors, how are these companies set up? And in most cases, you'll see that they have a bunch of local resellers, because in farming, the kind of sales is still quite personal. But at the same time, they also have their local teams in the country, but not competing with resellers, but supporting resellers. And that's the same kind of model that we are using as well. We work with local partners who already have farmer network, and in our case, they need also agronomic capabilities. In some other case, if it's really technical product, it might not be relevant, but it is for us. And then they have to have a big farmer network. But then we also need to make sure that we have our own local teams over there supporting resellers, because these companies, they have a bunch of products in their portfolio and limited time and resources. And we want to ensure that it's as easy as possible to sell our products, and as inconvenient as possible not to sell our products. We kind of prepare all the materials as much as possible and we support them, but we are always also a bit annoying. They're asking like, okay, did you actually meet some farmers about our product this week or not, and etc. So both of the parts are important, but I think it would be extremely difficult to set up entirely direct the sales force on your own.
Mhm.
That's something we did also in the beginning, so that's too costly and too slow. But also selling through resellers is not just that you sign up the reseller, you have to do the work after this as well.
And how do you find those resellers? And you said you make it inconvenient for them to not to sell your product and convenient for them to sell your product. How do you do that practically?
Well, maybe starting from the second one, I guess that there is more to this, but it's a bit number one, how to make it easy, setting up the processes and materials and so on. Like if you would, in a way, also a bit like a franchise. If you are going to set up a McDonald's franchise, a lot like you will get a guide and you will get, you don't have to do the marketing materials and everything. So you get a lot of support. So that's one side. And then the other side is, it's not that obviously we are not over there. Like, I mean, the other side, trying to agree on targets and keep each other accountable on the targets regarding activities and targets regarding final results. And obviously, we really value the partnerships and we don't want to be just annoying partners, but still having the regular calls and showing that we care. It's not that we just wanted to sign them up, but we actually care about the partnership. And then how to find the partners. I would say that there are, well, in these days, the LinkedIn and technology like this, they work really well. Usually, if you write to enough companies, you are able to get into conversations with them, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But the market is quite transparent in this sense that who are the companies who are operating in the country.
Interesting. And when you are looking to scale internationally, or let's say in Europe, how do you validate a market? How do you know which markets to enter, which markets not to enter? How do you differentiate?
Yeah, I would say the first barrier is like, is there enough hectares and farmers? That's the easiest to look. It doesn't make sense to spend too much time on Malta. Even if there is a really good opportunity over there, it just doesn't make sense for us. A lovely country, but not that much of farming land in ours, because we were focused on broadacre farming and pro-acre arable farming. So that's one thing. But then our goal in European Union, like we don't see a reason why some country cannot work. So in European Union. So that means that the next question is rather not like how good is the market, but what kind of partners can we have over there? And if we find a really good partner who knows the market and they know the market, they know us, and they want to represent us, then that's a really good validator. This market is good for entering as well.
Okay, interesting. Let's talk about the hard moments. I mean, there must have been some hard moments in e-agronom as well, where contracts were not being signed, customers were not happy with the product, or something just wasn't working. Can you talk about those moments and how that affected you?
Well, the biggest challenge for us has been the really long certification process for the credits. That like I mean, and it still is a struggle in our industry as a whole, I think. But it seems you really need to fight to get the reasonable things done on the certification side and push really hard and etc. So that was like initially that was something where we and the bit why it was also difficult was that was something that we assumed that if you do things properly, then all the auditing and certification that goes smoothly and quickly as well. But and so it was like an annoying thing that it took some time because and it was annoying because at the same time you were not able to focus on something else. So that's one side. But then the other side was also the farmer part of this, because farmers were also waiting for credits. And it was really like at one moment, it seemed like a paradox for us or something like this, because we knew how we were fighting for farmers' interests. At the same time, farmers were really annoyed on us. And over there, the transparent communication and proactive communication are the key. And I think we did an okay job. Going forward, we will try to do it even better. So to make sure that we are super transparent and communicating with farmers and showing them how we are fighting for their interests, because we were like it's really like surreal how on one moment like we are like 2/3 of the day we were in a calls with different people to make sure that we and working to make sure that we get those credits out. And then at the same time, well, after that, you will have a call where you get feedback from the farmer facing people who say, okay, this farmer is pissed off and that farmer is pissed off and so on. So that was really challenging in a way.
Okay. That's very interesting because I think the Vera registration that just happened in Jan 2026. First of all, congrats. But how did you keep then farmers signed up through 5 years of, trust me? Like, how did you keep them still signed up when the rewards were down the line?
Yeah, well, we are joking that we got the month right, but we didn't got the year right. So we missed a bit over there. But the main thing with farmers is to really the transparency. And in the end there were some farmers who were really pissed off and almost were like, okay, I'm not doing anything until I get those credits. That it was impossible to communicate. But majority of the farmers appreciated that we at least were transparent about all of this. So we didn't just kind of let them sit in the dark and hope that they are not noticing it or not writing to us or anything. We were proactively writing and calling and speaking to them, and I think that's the key. I mean, if there are those challenges, just be open about this and show how you solve it, because in most cases you are fighting for farmers' interests. Is it in our case it was the Vera kind of roadmap, or in some other case it might be setting up some technology or whatever, but you're working for them, so you're doing good thing even if there are some obstacles in the ahead of you.
So it's trust and active communication.
Yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
key. Okay. And was there then hard times for the internal team at the agronom as well? Perhaps you couldn't pay them their salaries or something happened like that?
We have always paid salaries. When COVID hit, then we had to let some people go, and then we collectively made a decision during that time because we were fundraising at the time.
Mm.
So it came in the first moment, and we actually had signed the contract, and one investor said that, no, I'm not transferring the money because we decided to freeze all the investments. And
Oh.
obviously now we know that the freeze was maybe 2 months, and then after this there was the biggest boom ever in the stock markets and so on. But at the time, it was the moment to be really careful, and then we had to let some people go. And with other people, we kind of made a collective decision to reduce salaries for a certain period because, well, we had option either to let a bit more go or to reduce, and then like people were okay with a bit reduced salaries. But overall, I think we have managed the finances quite well. So there has been no problems on that front. Obviously, at the same time, I would say that for farmer-facing people, it has been really tough when they need to communicate the challenges with farmers about the delays and etc. That's for them, I would say, really challenging and much more challenging than, for example, for me, because I cannot speak to each and every farmer.
It's interesting that you just mentioned that you were fundraising. I think you've raised close to 15, 20 million for e-agronom.
Mm-hmm.
What's the playbook behind that? Because a lot of our founders, they're currently going through their Series A and they're prepping for that. And I think it's a difficult thing to fundraise in this market. And I wonder what your playbook was.
So first of all, throughout the history of e-agronom, maybe when we started, then someone said that, okay, right now there is a boom, fundraising boom, and it's easy. But rest of the time, always there has been a moment, like 9 years out of 10, people have said that it's difficult time to fundraise. I'm not sure if it's always true, but well, sometimes it's more difficult, sometimes it's less. But I think proper companies get funding anyways. That's one thing. Then the second part is that we actually raised our first round from farmers. So farmers, we put the syndicate of our customers together and they invested, which was really good because it also validated a bit kind of the business case for the VCs who came
I
later.
think you raised 5K from your own customers, the farmers.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very interesting.
Exactly. And that was, and we put them all together behind one like a holding company. So it's not like 50 farmers being our shareholders. I mean, it has its own challenges as well. Time to time, some farmers are calling to me and is asking, okay, so when do I get the big return from my investment? And even though we try to be really transparent about all the risks and everything, but yeah. So then after that, we also raised from VCs, and in these days we have raised quite a lot also from the corporate VCRs because there is well, they perhaps understand the market better than regular VC,
Mhm.
and therefore has been. But in the end, well, my recommendation is to prepare well and be ready to speak to many investors before you actually close the round. So really like speaking to maybe 100 plus to even 200 investors while closing one funding round is totally normal thing in our, partly because, well, in many cases, they just might not be a good fit for you. It's not even your but it's difficult for you to know, especially if you are starting out, that, okay, if this fund is really for me or that fund.
Interesting. And it must be very different to raise from, first of all, farmers themselves, then from VCs, and then from corporate VCs, because I assume the playbook is different for all three of those.
So farmers, um, for them, it's more like supporting the cause in most cases. Then for VCs, it's really about the return. And then with corporate VCs, it's like supporting the technology or like we are happy if this kind of business model or this technology will scale because it somehow supports our business as well.
I want to dive deeper into raising from farmers because I think that's quite unheard of in this industry because in our cohort, or at least in our network of founders, I have not met a company that has raised from their customers itself, and those customers being farmers who are usually a bit more on the conservative side or hesitant to do this. So I wonder how you did that.
It actually started from this that we were doing some sales meetings. And then one farmer was joking that let us know when you're going to do IPO. We would like to invest. And then, well, because my background, I didn't have any big like a venture capital network or anything like this. All of this came later. But at that moment, we were thinking, okay, how do we raise capital and from who and etc. So we decided to speak to a few farmers, and there was interest. And then we basically ended up doing a roadshow where we met like 70, 80 farmers who were our customers at the time. And some of the meetings were in sauna, and some of the meetings were just in the living room and or in the field or anything. And we had a minimum ticket, I think 5,000 euros, and then maximum ticket was 100,000. So from this, so 20% of the round came actually from one company, which is like two business partners farming together over there. And then I think a really important part still was how we structured it as well through this holding company, because it would have been really difficult to gather all the signatures always if we needed to do some shareholder agreement or anything. So that was a crucial part as well.
And how many farmers did you get to invest? The 500
It was about 50 farmers in the end who
50
invested.
farmers. That's amazing. And how long was your runway when you started each fundraise? So, what's kind of the right number when you decide, okay, I need to start looking at fundraising now, maybe in the next 6 months, next 12 months?
Well, I think that's a good question. Like, ideal case would be that you basically have 12 months of runway and you close the round when you still have 6 months runway left. But that has perhaps even never been the case for us. In our case, we have had quite a many of those breach rounds. And so, so it has, I mean, it hasn't been the conventional fundraising story in this sense. But in the end, most important thing is that there is only one rule in building a startup, and that's that you can never run out of money. So if you run out of money, then it's game over. And we have managed to do this. Well, now we are also already in the position where, depending on how much we grow, we could become break even as well. So we have some additional options on the table. But I guess in the beginning, you just don't have those.
Very interesting. And a lot of the founders in our network, they're currently at the stage where they're at, let's say, 1 million in annualized revenue, and now they're looking to go from 1 to, let's say, 5, 10 million. And I imagine it's a different beast going from 0 to 1 million and then afterwards, because you need to do different things. How do you see that, and how do you navigate through that?
Yeah. We even had to a bit change the business model to make it happen. So in a way, that was also one of the reasons why we wanted to add this other carbon program also, like even though it's the same technology, it's all the same data collection and etc. But to add this carbon part of the business, also paying it, well, basically changing the tables so that we don't ask farmers to pay, but we are bringing money to farmers, which made the farmer acquisition slightly different, but also improved the unit economics further and etc. But absolutely, it's a different thing growing, and also a bit because the team is growing.
Mm.
So you need to find a way to manage all the markets without actually being present yourself.
Yeah. And I guess the team is the most important in that, because the role of the founder CEO, it becomes less hands-on and less more operational on the grounds. And it's more working with the team and working with an amazing team, I think.
Yeah, that's true. And how I look at it as well a bit is that what's this one activity that I can do so that everything else would be 10 times easier? It's not that there are other things that we always have to do, like we cannot ignore those other things. Sometimes people say like, okay, what's your one focus? But this focus, unfortunately, if you're building a startup, you cannot deal with only one thing. So there's like 100 focuses that you need to do those. But then the question is slightly different. So what's this one thing that makes all those rest 99 things easier? And that's different. That's different for every company, and that's also different in different periods. So at one moment it's this, then you maybe solve this, then it might be the certain product aspect, or it might be certain market, or it might be hiring, or it might be something else. And while doing it as a founder, key thing is always that you cannot run out of money. So you have to, if needed, you have to fundraise as well.
I want to understand that more. So, what's the one thing that makes the other 99 things easier? What are some practical examples of that for e-agronom itself, if it's company specific, I think?
Well, for example, in our case, the data collection, like automating the data collection. So if you have fully automated data collection, then every other aspect, growing, the certification processes, finding even resellers, and every other aspect becomes easier.
Mm.
But at some other moment it might be different thing, or in some other company it might be also different thing. And it's not that it's not that that's the only thing I need to do, because if you would fail doing something else, then yeah, well, you still might lose the company. But those other things are the areas that it might be okay to delegate to someone else. But it's one thing, okay, what I can do where I have to put my focus, so that all those 99
Yeah.
things would be 10 times easier than it is right now. In some stage, it might be increasing the annual customer value. It might be this for one company, because right now the unit economics don't work out for me, and I need to get this. If that works out, if ACV is higher, then I can raise more capital. I can use this capital more. I can hire more people to solve other problems. I can also scale more efficiently, and etc. So it might be that in some stages it might be the fundraising and so on.
So as a founder, you're basically working on the most highest leverage thing that you can work on, and the other things you have to accept to delegate, because that's why also I think quite difficult for founders to accept that they have to let someone else do it, even when you think that I mean you've done everything yourself since the starting. So that must be hard to accept. And so how do you know when you have to bring yourself out from the core process of let's say sales or product?
Well, in a way, well, first of all, I like ability to ignore things. I think that's really important. But in a way, also, if something is really really burning, then people will let you know, I would assume. Realistically, as a founder, like a Series A, Series B founder, you're lucky if you can work half of your time on this, and then other half is on all the other activities. It's not that you can only work on this. So
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, this should be at least half of your focus, but rest of the time goes into whatever comes on the table. Is it a VC call, or uh, kind of interview, or solving some specific problem, or some hiring thing. By the way, hiring might be also at certain moment. Hiring might be this one thing that makes everything else 10 times easier.
Mm. And you mentioned hiring. What was the first key hire after your founding members?
Mm.
Who should the first key hire be for a company that?
Well, the first team for us was like people related to product development. But I would say one really key hiring for us, and that was really different from everything else that we had done before, was hiring the first person to Poland. And that person is now head of global sales at Agri-Tech. So that was I would say, the really next big hiring.
What are the common mistakes you see that a lot of founders make due to their instincts of what worked from 0 to 1 million? So they know that, okay, this worked, this took me from 0 to 1, and they continue doing that from 1 to 100 as well. But maybe the right thing to do is something else. So what are those common mistakes that you see?
Well, one of the mistakes, and I have made it as well, and especially if you're a young founder, is that trying to please some of the advisors or investors or something like this. It's important to hear all the advice and to get this feedback. But the thing is that if you would take asking feedback really seriously, then you probably find feedback 360 degrees to all
Yeah.
different directions. So, that's one thing. And secondly, probably all of those directions would be correct, and then many of those would be wrong as well. So it's more about how do you execute, and okay, which direction you will take. But in the end, you need to take the responsibility, and and if things go well, you will get praised. If things go wrong, well, it's on you as well.
Yeah.
So you should never make the decision because someone gave you that advice. You should only make decision because you believe in this, and that's the best thing that you believe that needs to be done. And if it ends up being the correct one or wrong one, then well, you have to live with this. But if you make the wrong decision, but it was someone else's recommendation, then it's still your decision. You still need to live with this. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what others think. I mean, you get this feedback and so on, but this should not be the kind of this should not be the key reason for you to decide one way or another way. That okay, I mean, in our company also, sometimes we say we don't have democracy in our company. Like it's really good. We have democracy for choosing maybe the summer days time, but we don't want to have a vote on choosing which programming language we're using. So on this, we want CTO to make the decision. Also not me, but the CTO who knows much more about this. So we want the expert to make decisions, and even if on the company wide, we would have more people supporting some other direction, but the expert saying is that you have to go there, then we should go where the expert wants to lead us, because that person knows more on the topic. Like that one person knows more than maybe 9 other people who are not that focused on that topic.
That's interesting because you say that you follow the experts who are very experienced in doing that, but it's also the case sometimes that founders receive just advice and more advice. Sometimes that's not even practical or very vague from all directions from experts as well. And then sometimes it's even contradictory advice between two experts. How do you differentiate then if you're getting advice from 50 people telling you what to do, who haven't been in your shoes and who haven't really understood the core of your company? How do you
Absolutely. And even for one person, like sometimes you get that person saying one thing one day and another thing 1 month from now. So in the end, it's really on you.
That's why you don't have democracy in the company.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I think no one will want this as well. Like, I don't want to vote on some decision like what do we do exactly, how do we present exactly something in Spain, for example. And we have people over there. They know this. They can make the decision. It's not. At the same time, I love to live in a democratic country. So I'm really pro democracy overall. But in making decisions on a company, you don't want to just see like, okay, more advisors are saying that's good, so we should go with that direction.
Mm, completely agree. That's quite an interesting take. And Robin, we have a closing tradition on this podcast. And the question I have to ask you is, what's one thing that was missing in this conversation today that all the founders, everyone that's listening to it right now, I think it's very important for them to understand. What's the one
Mhm.
thing that we missed?
I would say that nothing is as good or as bad as it looks. So almost on a weekly basis, we get some news that something like, okay, wow, this is really good or this is really bad. And then if your emotions would go like this up and down as well, then you will be really tired later. So, but then actually, if you after some time, you will find that in many cases there was some misinformation. There's some more context to this, or some problem is solving on its own, or other problem that even was not solved is actually not that big of a problem, or then in some case with something someone else is solving it eventually, and with good things as well. I mean, someone had said, "Okay, I had a really good call with that food company or whatever." Like, I mean, that's really good. But then you see that it actually takes longer or whatever. So don't let those good news or bad news to influence you that much.
Especially as a founder, you shouldn't be sinusoidal in your emotions, and you should be really consistent with them because it also affects your team, I think.
Exactly, like this slight positive mindset always that
Yeah.
okay, whatever it is, we'll figure it out, and and also with good things. So that's really good. But let's not be too, I mean, overwhelmingly happy about this.
Robin, thank you so much for this very interesting conversation we had today. And uh, I really do hope the listeners are going to get a lot of value out of this. And I really enjoy the way you articulate yourself and the way you're very straightforward. So thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, and glad to be here.